All right. Hello, everyone. MyoHoRenGeKyo. Thank you for being here. I hope your life is going well, your practice is strong, and you're staying healthy. If not, this study and your Daimoku will get you through it to the best possible result. And I'm with you. MyoHoRenGeKyo. All right. So let's continue with the farther the source, the longer the stream. Probably more meaningful in history than today in our soundbite society. That's probably an odd title, but I've already talked about that enough. So let's just continue, and I think we can. We'll finish this in part 2. It is now some 2,230 years since the Buddha's passing. Those who spread Buddhism in India for more than 1,000 years thereafter are recorded in history without omission. And those who disseminated Buddhism in China for 1,000 years and in Japan for 700 are also clearly listed. Very few of them, however, met persecutions as terrible as those of the Buddha, Shakyamuni himself. Many described themselves as sages or worthies, but not one has ever experienced the sutra's predictions, quote, since hatred and jealousy toward this sutra abound even when the thus come one is in the world, how much more will this be so after his passing, end quote. Bodhisattva Nagarjuna, Tendai, and Dengyo met great persecutions for the sake of Buddhism, but none as great as those the Buddha describes in the sutra. This is because they were born before the time when the Lotus Sutra is to be spread. Propagated widely, in other words. They were never prohibited from spreading it. It just wasn't the right time yet. The people hadn't cultivated the capacity, nor had they cultivated an environment so distracting as ours in this latter day. There were people 2,000 years ago who, without practicing the depth of the Lotus Sutra, could awaken their Buddha nature. They had far less distractions, far less holds on their obsessive desire to want. There was far less to want. There weren't programs and propaganda at such a raging level as we have today. Life was, although it's an oversimplification and it's a hackneyed term, the times were far simpler then. But if you really sit down and think about it, it was very hand-to-mouth. Unless you were royalty or elite, your existence depended on your working the land, or if you were lucky, you were born into a caste that manufactured shoes or some other mercantile. But the complexity of your life, was pretty straightforward. Today, we live moment to moment, quite literally, even though that is the nature of life, constantly changing, constantly in flux, moment to moment, instantiating, fading away, reinstantiating, fading away, birth, death, birth, death, birth, death. We've talked about this. What happens in the space of 5 minutes today is more than could be experienced by someone 2,000 years ago, simply because of notifications on your phone, the plethora of stuff that's available on the internet, the vast population centers, how many just people are around us, tugging us one way or another, allegiances, politics, personal politics, so on and so forth. The degree to which we're constantly, and it feeds our avarice, our greed for hanging on to things, making them permanent, because things are flying through our experience so quickly that we actually throw ourselves at certain things far more obsessively than in previous centuries, simply because we're driven by that desire to just anchor something. This is mine, right? So in this life condition, this latter day of greed, anger, and stupidity, because of the conditions that our tendencies live in, the Lotus Sutra, MyoHoRenGeKyo, is the only method by which we can transcend immediately all of that to attain our Buddha nature. Nothing else will work, because everything else requires so much thinking, so much dedication, so much study that we just can't hold our attention that long. Now, study is good. There's a length of time involved, but the source, MyoHoRenGeKyo, is further away. Our Buddhahood is further away. So we need a good steady stream to take us from where we are to that distant awakening and make it immediate. Don't misunderstand me. Buddhahood is already there. But our realization of it is there's so much mire in our daily experience that it pushes away it's like, do you remember the old cartoons with Yosemite Sam or Bugs Bunny, where they'd find themselves in a desert and suddenly a door would appear, and opening that door just led to another door and another, and then they speed up the cartoon and then back away the camera, and you'd see this endless line of doors, right? So if you could use that visualization, it would be like in Shakyamuni's time, that it might be difficult to get the door open, but everyone could see the door, work toward it, and some could figure out how to turn the bolt or whatever and open that door. Whereas today, we have a tool that immediately opens doors, but we have a myriad doors to go through in order to awaken, to focus our attention on our Buddha. So, if that's a better visualization, use that. So let's continue. We have now already entered the last 500-year period, or the beginning of the latter day of the law. Some people get confused about this too. What Shakyamuni meant by the last 500-year period after my demise, my entering nirvana of no remainder, is that will begin a 10,000-year period known as the latter day of the law. The 500-year period isn't the entirety of the latter day of the law, but the first 500 years is the time period with which the bodhisattvas of the earth will make their advent. But the time period that we inhabit, that we manifest, will last for 10,000 years. This is why we are the bodhisattvas. We are the ones with the responsibility to make absolutely certain that this teaching is spread broadly. Do you understand? This time period is like the sun at the summer solstice on the 15th day of the 5th month, or the harvest moon on the 15th day of the 8th month. Tendai and Dengyo were born too early to see it. Those born after will regret that they came too late. So we occupy a very important position in history, right? The main force of the enemy has already been defeated, and the remainder is no match for me. Now is the very time that the Buddha predicted, the last 500-year period, or the beginning of the latter day of the law, and the age indicated by the passage, how much more will this be so after his passing? If the Buddha's words are not false, a sage must certainly have appeared in the land of Jambudvipa. According to the sutras, the greatest war the land has ever seen will break out as a sign of this sage's advent. And since such a war has already occurred, the sage must already have appeared in Jambudvipa. The appearance of a legendary beast called Qi Lin told Chinese contemporaries that Confucius was a sage, and there is no doubt that the resounding of a village shrine heralds a sage's coming. When the Buddha made his advent in this world, the growth of the sandalwood trees informed his contemporaries that he was a sage. Lao Tzu was recognized as a sage because at birth the sole of one foot was marked with the Chinese character 2, and the other with the character 5. Then how does one recognize the sage of the Lotus Sutra in this latter age? Sutra says that one who can preach this sutra or who can uphold this sutra is the envoy of the thus come one. In other words, one who embraces the 8 volumes or a single volume, chapter or verse of the Lotus Sutra, or who chants the Daimoku is the thus come one's emissary. Also, one who perseveres through great persecutions and embraces the sutra from beginning to end is the thus come one's emissary. Well, isn't that our instruction? Isn't that what we all are practicing? So we are all emissaries of the thus come one. And Nichiren, certainly identifying his persecutions and his history, identifies him as the votary of the Lotus Sutra. But we are all emulating Nichiren in our practice of Shakyamuni's Lotus Sutra sermon, right? Because we are the bodhisattvas of the earth, of which bodhisattva superior practices, Nichiren is one of 4 leaders. Since I am but a common mortal, this is Nichiren, my mind may not be that of the thus come one's envoy. However, since I have incurred the hatred of the 3 powerful enemies and been exiled twice, I am like the thus come one's envoy. Though my mind is steeped in the 3 poisons and my body is that of a common mortal because my mouth chants Namu MyoHoRenGeKyo, I am like the thus come one's envoy. So there it is, plainly spoken. We are common mortal. But because with our mouths we chant Namu MyoHoRenGeKyo and all that it means, all that's inculcated into that mantra, that title, we are Shakyamuni's envoy. Right? Not Nichiren's. Nichiren is you and I. If I seek an example in the past, I may be likened to Bodhisattva never disparaging, which is one of the chapters in the Lotus Sutra, right? If I look at the present, I have been living the sutra's description of persecution with swords and staves, tiles and stones. In the future, I will doubtless proceed to the place of enlightenment, and those who have sustained me will also dwell together in the pure land of Eagle Peak. I have many other things to tell you, but I'll stop here and leave the rest for you to conclude. The ailing acolyte has recovered, which makes me very happy. Acharya Daishin died exactly as you foresaw. Everyone here praises you, saying that even a latter-day Jivaka would be no match for you. I think they may well be right. We have been telling each other that your predictions about Samibo and Soshiro have come true exactly, just as 2 allies match precisely. I entrust my life to you and will consult no other physician. And again, he's speaking or writing to Shijo Kingo, who's quite well known for his knowledge of medicines and healing practices. So, to Shijo Kingo. So this is quite a letter informing Shijo Kingo to stay dedicated, stay strong in his practice. All these things that dissuade you. Look at what happens. Your Lord Emma, he takes your land and then he needs you and you prove yourself and he's elated and he gives you even more land. He apologizes, gives you your lands back and more lands and more things. It's a seesaw. This is life. But don't let these vicissitudes of life dissuade you from your practice, because the one true thing is your Buddha. Stay with it. Stay vigilant. You're going to, as he said in other letters, suffer what there is to suffer. Enjoy, have ecstatic joy when you have it, experience it. But never deviate from your practice of MyoHoRenGeKyo. Namu MyoHoRenGeKyo will get you through the vicissitudes, and they will slowly disappear and lessen. If not disappear, they will lessen, and their effect upon you will lessen. And because their effect upon you will lessen, your life, your Buddha nature, your Buddha mind will grow to encompass your environs. The people around you will change. They'll either disappear completely or new people will come in to replace them and push them away. More positive, life-affirming existence will manifest around you because you will be manifest of your greater life condition. It's a simple equation. But this is why this practice requires so much resolve, so much determination, so that you don't do as the times do. Volatility is not your friend. Volatility is a distraction. So see it that way. Let the volatility happen. You can't stop it. You're in samsara, which is a brilliant, precious place to be because you're allowed to perceive this. Stay in that perceptive mindset. When craziness happens, look at it. See it for what it is. Don't be influenced by it. Don't be taken down by it. Easier said than done, right? This is why we have a mandala. So that we have a sacred place where we can take our samsaric self and push it to our Buddha. And force it. Keep this place sacred. Keep it safe. Keep it clear of other distractions. So that when you have this one sacred place, you can immediately become the Buddha objective thought, the Buddha experience of all this stuff we call life. Because there's a process beneath what we call life that is the power, the force, the quantum field, if you will, of the life process itself, which far transcends these petty little things that we take so much emotional pain from. Let that go. That's your attachments. That's your ego. That's your self. You have an ego. You have a self. You have all that. It's not a denial of those things. It's to stop being influenced by them. The monkey mind, right? Anyway, that concludes this Go Show. As you see, our practice is one of instant enlightenment, and yet we have to enlighten every single moment. Birth, death, birth, death, birth, death. So there's a constant dedication to enlivening this moment. And it slowly takes over this massive train of previous moments and guides it toward enlightenment, Buddha-ness. It doesn't happen all at once. We touch it all at once, but it's hard to keep it there because we're in samsara, which is the only place we can experience it. It's kind of a conundrum, but we can do it. And every time we succeed, we're further charged and buoyed up in our practice, confident. And so we amass more resolve, and we do more, and we build upon it. And then we run into an obstacle. Sure. But those obstacles are only there for us to break through. And then the tremendous accomplishment of that creates much deeper confidence, a greater resolve, and visible effects in our environs, in our experience of life, in our surroundings, let alone in our own physical bodies, right? I encourage you to keep going. I'm so proud of all of you. We are, as I keep saying, growing steadily. Don't forget to download the podcast if that's helpful for you. The Buddhahood Podcast, as it says in the end screens and beginning screens of these videos. Don't forget the website, threefoldlotus.com. There's a lot of material there, especially for beginners. I appreciate you all so much. You're vital to my practice and our Sangha, everything you do. Thanks again. I'll see you in the next one. Bye-bye.